Okay, we're nearly there. You've gotten so far already. Now let's take it up another notch. Now while you're practicing, you may come across what we call the plateau, what I call the plateau. I used to call it a funk, but funk's a bit more fun than a plateau, I think. So you've learned all these chords and you think, oh, where am I going to go to from here? Now, you've got a whole bunch of extra different techniques in your back pocket, finger picking, hammer-ons and pull-offs. Slides up and down are all kind of fun too. It makes sense, really. Slides are more for soloing, but they can be kind of fun. You can even slide up some of your chords. Just try around, muck around with it. Play around with whatever it is that you want to do. Nothing to stop you. There are no rules with guitar playing. There are fundamental basics that you need to know, and it's kind of when you get into the songwriting type of thing, that's when the rules are there, but they're meant to be broken. Now, anything with music, unless it's, of course, it's a harmony or it's a melodic phrase or it's a key that you're in, you can do whatever you want within that key. But the rules are there to be flipped around, so you can play around with it. To fight the plateau, what you can do is just muck around with the guitar. Listen to your favorite band or your favorite guitarist and see if you can figure out what they're doing and try to emulate that. Break your normal patterns. Now, the practice plan is there. It's not a rule. It's just a guide to help you through. With your strumming, I try to get you to play around with that and just have fun with it. This isn't meant to be hard work. It's meant to be fun. I mean, some things are kind of hard to do, but once you get the gist of it, it's a whole bunch of fun to play around with. So please, just make some noise. Really muck around with it. Strum away. Do whatever you really want to do. Fight that plateau. You'll come across this a lot. It's all right. It happens to the best of us. It happens to me. It happens to everybody. Now, one way to help try and fight this plateau is to start advancing. And like I said, knock it up a notch. And that's to play bar chords. And I was sort of talking about that when we were doing the A minor and even some of the E stuff. The way that you put your fingers is a different way to play it, and it helps get towards bar chords. Okay, so there are 6 common types or patterns of bar chords, and they revolve around the E or the A shapes, as I've spoken about in day 1 and also in day 4. So it will be the major, the minor, and the 7th for both the E and the A. So major, but you're using just the flat of this finger for the A bar chords, yeah? And using these 2 fingers instead for your A 7th, but E and A minor are all the same. So remembering that this first finger here is just a replacement of the nut, moving it up the frets. The big trick with learning bar chords is learning which fret you're on and which fret is which chord. In your ebook you'll have a diagram of all of the notes on all the frets up to the 12th. As we're working with the E and the A, that would lend itself to, you only need to know the frets for the E and the A to learn which chord is which when you play bar chords. And of course, depending on if you're using the E chord pattern, then you use the E string, and if you're using the A chord pattern, you use the A string. So that's the big trick. The second big trick is finger strength. Can't give you any secrets on this. This just comes down to practice and just constantly doing it. We'll concentrate on the E and the A strings, as I've mentioned, but they, as I've said, dictate the names of the chords playing, very much like power chords. So to start off with, I'll only illustrate the 3rd fret, and just to show you these chords, because it's easier on my hands. That's the only reason. So we know what a G chord sounds like. Cool? This is a G bar chord. Very similar, slightly different undertones. Now that's a G major because I'm using the E major pattern. This would be a G minor because I'm using a minor pattern. And this will be a G 7th because I'm using the 7th pattern. Notice I'm not doing the big boy, crazy, extra harder version of the E7, the very simple version of E7 that we learnt on day 1. And that's a G 7th. Now, whatever fret that I'm on, because I'm using the E pattern, it will change. So if I do the same thing on the 5th fret, that will be an A. A major, A minor, A7, A major, A minor, A D7. They sound very similar, slightly different undertones. And that's as far as I'm going to go with the E pattern. With the A pattern, I remember I said to use that flat of that finger there, so this is what a C in the first position sounds like. And this is what a C sounds like as a C bar chord. It's got one of those little higher notes up there. Oh, wow, cool. So that's a C major. You want to play C minor, go to the minor pattern. You want to play a C seventh, go to the seventh pattern. And if you want to go up and you go to the D, D minor, D7. So the trick to this, as I said, hand strength. You're going to hold these chords in some songs, pretty much the entire song. It can get very tiring, and still it gets tiring to me. And if it's getting too much, I'll end up just going down to first position just to give my wrist a break. But also the other trick is knowing where you are on the fretboard. That is the secret to bar chords. There is no crazy trick that I can show. There is no mythical secret that anyone has. I don't understand that. If you do see that, it's probably just a good sales pitch. But you have to remember all the numbers and the names of those frets. So after I'd learned, when I was beginning, all of the strings and all the frets up to the fifth, I then only concentrated on all the fret names on the E and the A strings so as I could get my bar chords and my power chords solidified up here. And that'll happen over time. In the practice plan, you will see that there are different little exercises. We'll say to go from A to A fifth, to D fifth, to G fifth, from the first position to the power chord, and then from the power chords to the bar chords, and then switching them all up and having a good time with it. You will come across songs that will work a lot in the first position, and then they'll go bam straight up into a power chord or a bar chord. And like, where'd that come from? You go, well, that's just the way that it's been written, and that's just kind of the fun part of it. So getting your head around where the frets are and which pattern to use in association with which chord, that is the big trick in this. There is no other trick apart from getting in, practicing and playing. One little trick that I can give you is playing the F chord on the first position. It is quite rough on your fingers because there's so much tension down there. Now, most of the bar chords that I play, even the power chords that I play, I don't have my elbow in as far to my chest as I do when I'm playing the F in the first position. So with the F in the first position, I'm sort of like leveraging my wrist out and pulling my elbow in a little bit more. If I played it like a normal first position sort of chord, then I'd be playing it kind of like that, and that's quite difficult. Find, you know, your ligaments might be a little bit more stretchy than mine, so that might be working for you. If not, bring your elbow in closer. And as you bring it in, your elbow in closer, your first position finger will naturally just shift off to the side and pivot. So it's kind of like if you're working, say, flat on the front, it'd be about 45 degrees towards your thumb. And that's just how I do it. That's how a lot of people, if they're struggling to try and get that chord in, that seems to have worked for them as well. It's just pull your elbow in, your wrist will naturally move out, and so will your finger fix itself up on that first position fret there. So, hand strength, big one. Remembering the frets, huge one. Not hard, it's just different. And the reason that it's not hard, or even that you may think it's hard, is all about your mindset. If you go into these bar chords going, right, I've got the tools, I know how to hold my fingers down here in the first position, I've been practicing some time, I've got calluses going on, my wrists are being stretched out, I'm doing all the work I can. All you're doing is adding one finger that does nothing else except stay in that one spot and move up and down. It's the hand strength that you need to really cook into. So the mindset, knowing that, hey, I can do this, will help you progress super fast. So along with the practice plan, as I've said, you know, between the first position and so on and so forth, and then going into the bar chords, transitioning between all of the bar chords, this is quite simple. You've got your bar chord, you've got it in place, and if you're playing it away and you want to go to the next chord, all you have to do is just lift your fingers up. You don't have to take them off the string, just release the pressure and move it up to the next fret you want it to be at. Whether that be each single fret and back down again, you're keeping the same pattern. You're keeping everything the same, unless, of course, you change between. Now that's the trick. You're keeping your finger in this first finger in the same position all the time. It's everything else. And if you can go between E and A and E and A and E and A like that, then you're going to absolutely dominate playing bar chords, because if all you're doing is just back and forwards and back and forwards, that's all you're doing. Anywhere else up the fretboard, it doesn't matter. This finger stays the same. Everything else is the thing that moves. I actually find bar chords can be quite easier with transitions between things like that, because you're using these two as a pincer on the fretboard and the neck, you're killing it. Like, it just stays there. It's a rock. This is one of those anchors that, yeah, it can still move up and down, but hey, what a good anchor to have. It stays in the same position. You don't have to do anything else with it. Bar chords are not difficult. Jazz chords are difficult. Suspended and augmented chords can be slightly more difficult. I'm not going to go into the theory of suspended and augmented, but I'm going to talk about them in a couple of seconds and show you a couple of more common ones that come up. So if you, after the end of this course, you want to start writing your own songs, this is something cool to think about. I'll be back in 2 bits. Okay, augmented chords. They are something that you won't normally see in pop music, but you may come across them just in some random book or something. Or jazz, if you're into jazz. Who wants to play jazz? Because the jazz chords are crazy, and I don't, that's not up to me. Now, I have always said I'm not going to talk about a whole lot of music theory, but I've taught you about what a chord triad is. Now, an augmented chord is essentially a triad that's in the major chord, the top note or the fifth note is raised. They tend to look like this, and they tend to sound a little bit like this. Whole bunch of tension. It's just like augmented reality, maybe? Anyway. I only put in this augmented stuff and the suspended stuff because I know that you'll see it, and I know that you'll maybe think it's confusing, but it's not very confusing at all. They are just a different way of playing chords that over time, and if you do get into music theory, you'll understand a whole lot more about it. But I only wanted to touch on it because I have written about it in the book, and I just put it in there because it's a good ready reference for you. Now we're going to move on to suspendeds. Okay, suspendeds. Back to the non-musical theory that I'm trying to get across to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I do know what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to make it as simple as possible. Suspended in a triad is when the third is typically removed from the actual chord itself, and then what they call a perfect fourth is put in as its replacement. Now, you'll see a lot of, say, A2 to A suspended fourth, or A suspended seventh. Now, A suspended fourth and A2 are quite often used because they sound really good together. So this is what an A2 looks like. It sounds like this. Sounds awesome. And this was an A suspended fourth looks like. And it sounds like this. Just sounds really nice together. Now that's all I wanted to talk about suspendeds with, because you will see those a lot in a lot of pop songs, especially a lot of the rock songs. They're using them a lot, and they've used them all throughout the 90s and even 80s at some points. But that's all I really wanted to say. So you're aware of them. That's what they look like. Don't be scared of them. Again, if you've got, say, a cool little tab program, or even on the internet, they have like a hyperlink that shows up with the chord pattern. Just check it out if you're not sure. You can do this. Believe in you. And before I finish off this entire course, before we completely finish, I want to talk about inversions. Inversions are cool. Inversions are awesome. They're essentially just moving the root note of a chord up a full octave, so getting a whole 8 notes above. Chord still sounds harmonically the same, but it has a different character to it, and it makes that sound great. I'm going to talk a lot more about inversions when I begin on my songwriting course. That will be coming soon, and if you're interested in it, you know where you'll find it. So if we've got an E minor chord, for example, that's all I'm doing. It's the same chord, I'm just moving it up and changing it around. That's an inversion. That was a suspended, and that was also an augmented, and Barre chords. Barre chords are your best friend. Don't be scared of them. Please play a lot of them. They're the best things ever. You've done really well. This is the end, my lovely friend. I cannot believe how proud I will be of you when I see videos of you put up all over Facebook, when you send me videos of, say, day one until, you know, whenever it is that you finish this course. I thank you so much for hanging out with me. I cannot thank you enough for coming through this great big journey. I hate using that because you see it on reality TV shows all the time, and the word journey is just, it's overused. But thank you so much. I am proud of you, and I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of my kids' hearts, from the bottom of the world's heart. You are going to go out there and make beautiful music, whether that be just in your bedroom or in the backyard with your friends, or even if you get gigs. If you get gigs, I want to see video and picture. I will blast that crap everywhere. I'm not saying it's crap, I'm saying that it's going to go on everything, because you're the best. Thank you so much. I hope you're getting ready for 12 Bar Blues, because I'm excited to teach it. Catch you soon.